For me, it's kind of the best of both worlds. I do get the support that you would get in, and say an academic setting or a completely employed position, but I don't have that same sort of red tape that you would have, say, if you were in a hospital-based system.
Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as my latest book called the Beauty and the Biz Plastic Surgery Practice Playbook. And it's a bunch of podcast pearls that I've gotten from the surgeons throughout the years. I'm also a consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's special guest is Dr. Shawna Kleban. She's a board-certified plastic surgeon who's part of a multi-surgeon, multi-practice group called HKB Cosmetic Surgery, and she practices in Charlotte, Huntersville, and South Park, North Carolina, and she has for the past 6 years. Now, Dr. Kleban attended the University of Virginia School of Medicine and did a fellowship with HKB and has published multiple peer-reviewed articles and book chapters in the field of plastic surgery. She also speaks at regional and national medical conferences, and she even teaches the HKB Aesthetic Fellows and visiting residents from Wake Forest and the University of North Carolina. Dr. Kleban, welcome to Beauty and the Biz.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So typically we talk about, what do you do after fellowship? But in your case, talk about your fellowship and then what you did after that.
So for me, it was really important to do a fellowship. I actually did my plastic surgery training out in Las Vegas. It was a very small program, and I knew that I wanted to do aesthetic surgery, and I didn't want to be tied to a major hospital-based setting. I didn't want to be taking the hand call, the replant call, all of those sorts of things. I really wanted to kind of focus my time and attention on the patients that I really connect with, which are aesthetic patients. And so for me, doing an aesthetic fellowship was a way to find the job that I really wanted to have, which was a job which was, most, if not all, aesthetics. And today I'm really lucky that I do 100% aesthetic surgery, and I have since I finished my training. And I think without a fellowship, I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Well, you also hooked up with a very unusual group of surgeons. I've had two of the founders on my podcast, and they're thinking very entrepreneurially. Were you planning on staying, or did it happen as you've watched them grow, or you watched what they were doing, you wanted to be part of it? What was your mindset about staying versus going out on your own?
So I always envisioned myself being a part of a group practice. I just like the group practice atmosphere. So for myself, I like having colleagues. I like being able to bounce ideas off of other people. I like, being able to get advice if something isn't going wrong, or being able to help out my colleagues. For example, I have a patient that I'm helping out right now because one of my colleagues is out of town, and I'm happy to do so. And so being able to be part of that collaborative environment was super important to me. The opportunity actually arose because Dr. Hunstad was actually retiring. And so I never really thought about staying here, but I really fell in love with Charlotte, the city, the people, and the practice and the people that I met here. And so I had this unique opportunity. And then after I joined, kind of that expansion and that growth has happened. So I've been kind of on the sidelines as that growth has kind of transpired over the past 6 years, where when I joined on, there was one additional practice. And I think now we have 10 different practices across the country. And so it's been really great to get to know some of those surgeons, get to collaborate with, past presidents of ASAPs, and those that are going to be future presidents of ASAPs, like Trent Douglas. And so there's a lot of opportunity for connection and growth within the community by being part of this kind of juggernaut practice.
So let's talk about the practice you're in. Are you a contractor, a partner? What are you in that practice?
So I'm actually a W-2 employee. And so there is opportunity for partnership and profit sharing and things. In my practice, it made more sense for me to continue as an employed physician, just because of some of the lifestyle changes that I am hoping will be coming very soon for me. I got married a couple years ago, and I'm hoping to have children. And so for me, an employed style practice really made sense to stay in right now. That doesn't mean that I may not, look towards partnership in the future, even, who knows, go out on my own at some point. But for right now and my lifestyle, I really like the support that I get as an employed physician. And the ability to turn off my phone at the end of the day is a beautiful thing as well. And so being an owner and a partner means that you never get to turn off your phone. It means that you're always working. And I really respect that and understand that. But for right now in my life, that's not where I want to be.
So in the umbrella of because you almost have two different businesses there. One is your your plastic surgery business in North Carolina, and you're always there. And some of them are there, but then there are all these other practices. And I know after talking with one of the doctors, you have like a staff of 200 who's handling. You're kind of like a PE company without
The PE.
the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're kind of our own PE,
Yeah.
owned by the physicians and all of those sorts of things. Some of the other physicians, have partial ownership of their own practices after they've been sold. Our practice in particular is kind of, we call it, the mothership, well, not the mothership, but the flagship.
Yeah.
And so it's where, all of our C-suite is, our president of the company, all of that. So by being in this location as well, I am able to know what's going on with kind of the larger company. If I have concerns or questions, I have full access to those people as well. So there's definitely some advantages to that. And we also have kind of the biggest group. We just hired on another surgeon. So he trained with us for fellowship. So we hired him on, and we're going to be opening up a new practice in Fort Mill, South Carolina, which he and I will both be going to. And so that is going to be just a satellite location of the Huntersville location where we have our, big operating room, basically our surgery center and clinical space there.
So, by the way, you're getting such a good education on how to run a practice, and how to run a business, because this really is the business of plastic surgery. There's so much more to it than just the surgery. So, good for you for like being right there, learning how they, make the soup, or however they say that. But the other practices you're not going to other practices, or you work strictly in the North Carolina, like the flagship practice. And do you have is there a goal to build a whole bunch of different like feeder locations for surgery? Is that the point?
Not really. It's more about having all of these locations that have the same vision, same goals, and surgeons that are staffed at each location. And so the surgeons at my location only go to my location. We might go to like a separate clinical space. So right now I'm in South Park, which is in Charlotte, and I do clinical time there as well as clinical time up in Huntersville, but I operate exclusively in the Huntersville location. That's where we have our operating rooms. We have a couple other satellite locations that are also just clinical spaces. So we have a Concord location, and then hopefully, in October or so, we're going to be opening our Fort Mill location, which these are all like 20, 30 minutes away from our main site where we all operate. So we have our surgery center and then a couple just extra clinical spaces for other surgeons. The other practices aren't really built that way. They're really built as a single practice that's under the general umbrella of HKB. And so they have, one or two surgeons that operate within either their own facility or at a surgery center or hospital-based setting, but they aren't going to other locations. I'm not going to additional locations. I'm just going to the locations that I'm a part of. We also have several locations in North Carolina itself. And so we have a separate location in Greensboro, but the Greensboro surgeon doesn't come here and we don't go to Greensboro.
So as a plastic surgeon, here's what I'm thinking, because I know you're surgeons, and I'm thinking you have the most unusual business model. So as a surgeon, though, does this mean you get to just do surgery because you have this huge machine behind the scenes that's doing patient attraction, patient conversion, answering the phones, patient retention. Is that the point? That as a surgeon, you get to just be the surgeon and let somebody else do the rest of it?
And yes, that's the big advantage. And for a lot of the surgeons within the group, there's kind of two different surgeon kind of types. There's the surgeon that has been running their own business, their own practice. They're tired of the business side. They're done with that. They do want to just focus on patient care, on surgery. And so by being a part of HKB, they get support and help with the business side of things so that they can really focus their efforts where they enjoy themselves, not focusing on the nitty gritty of hiring and firing and all of those sorts of things. The other surgeon population is kind of a new hire, new grad. And so those individuals are looking for a more employed position. They're looking for the ability to do aesthetic surgery, but not have to have the headache of starting off from nothing, building their own practice. They're walking into a practice that already has leads, already is able to convert, has seasoned individuals behind the scenes helping to support them during those early years, during board collection too, which is really important.
So was that super helpful to you when you came out? Because
Oh,
nowadays, yeah, entering this marketplace, I don't even know how you do it anymore unless you have a ton of money. Hopefully you have a family money or someone owns a lot of real estate and they can get you off to a good start. But was that what your plan was, is to just find a home where you could still have work-life balance and have somebody else deal with all the business and the marketing side?
and the great news with that is that I still get a little bit of input on those things. So my ideas are still taken seriously. I still interact with, the marketing team, our VP of operations, all of those individuals. And so if I have a really good idea or there's something that is really important to me, I can still get stuff done. So I don't feel like just a cog in the machine, or anything like that. I really do feel like I'm a part of the team, and that myself and the other surgeons really do have a voice in the larger group. We do meetings with the larger surgeon group monthly so that we can kind of, transition ideas from place to place, check in, see if there's anything that's working, not working, and all of that. And then we do our own kind of group meeting with just the surgeons here in town to once again see, what's going on, boots on the ground here, and be able to say, okay, well, I've been experiencing this, what can we do to change that, and talk to our leadership team about it. So I think for me it's kind of the best of both worlds. I do get the support that you would get in, and say an academic setting or a completely employed position, but I don't have that same sort of red tape that you would have, say, if you were in a hospital-based system. If I want to add on a product, we can add on a product tomorrow. And a great example of that is that I've done some training for kind of the rib remodeling. And so we don't have a piezo tome. So we got one, we ordered it. It's sitting in my VP of operations office. And so hopefully we're going to start offering that to our patients and get everybody trained that wants to get trained as well. And so using our center as a hub for training the other physicians within our HKB community is also a great asset as well.
Right. When it comes to staff, I think one of the most important relationships in plastic surgery is the surgeon and their consultant, their patient consultant, because you work together. I'm assuming, you work together on the consult. Did you get to select your own? Are you handed somebody? How does it work with staff?
So with call them patient care coordinators, PCCs. They call them, different names, different places, but they're the person that, continues to vet you and presents the quote, all of those sorts of things. So with our system, we have shared patient care coordinators. At this time, our patient care coordinators are assigned to the patient. And so if a patient continues through the journey, maybe they come to me for some breast and body work, but they want to see one of my other colleagues for a rhinoplasty, they still have the same patient care coordinator to kind of guide them through that. So I work with all of them, and I've been working with them for 6 years, so they know me very well. I tend to work with some of them more frequently than others. And so those are the ones that kind of have my back, and those are my go-tos. If I need something, I just kind of reach out to them.
Hello, it's Catherine with a quick announcement. My new book, Beauty in the Biz, The Plastic Surgery Practice Growth Playbook, is at the printer. Now, it's based on 175 interviews with top plastic surgeons across the country, what they're doing differently to convert more, retain more, and profit more. You can pre-order a copy of the book at beautyandthebizbook.com. Now, back to the show. I hear all the good stuff that is happening there. What's one of the cons of doing it this way? What don't you love?
Um, I think one of the hard things is that although your voice is heard, it can take a long time to enact change because there are so many systems and processes. There are so many staff members. There are so many people to train that one idea could take months and months and months to come to fruition because you have to say, well, is it a good idea to this person, and then we have to train each staff at multiple different locations and pass it up and down the chain of command. And so that can be frustrating at times, but it does mean that, certain things I'm like, that's such a minor thing. It's not even worth it. So it does kind of help me filter out ideas and problems that don't need to be brought up. Is this something that I'm really passionate about that I want changed? Then yeah, I can push forward. We can make it happen. I got my piezo. I got my fancy saw. And so those are the sorts of things that if it really needs to be done, it can get done very quickly and efficiently. But if it's more of a systems based issue, it can take a while to change things.
Yeah. What happens when leads come in? Is there any question about it? It seems like it can be rife for issues if one doctor gets more leads than the other doctor, or the phone staff loves this other doctor more and feeds them more. Like it, how everyone wants everything fair.
Sure.
Is that an issue at all?
I mean, it's always going to be an issue. I haven't really had any issues with that. First of all, they ask if there's a certain location that they would like to go to, if there's a certain surgeon that they're hoping to see. And a lot of times patients are looking for a specific surgeon. The other thing too is if a patient is looking for a certain surgery that one surgeon kind of specializes in, they may push them in that direction. So we have a facial plastic surgeon, and so he will get a lot of the rhinoplasties, facelifts, and those sorts of things. I'm not doing rhinoplasties anymore, so I'm okay with that. But as far as how the others are divvied up, it's really based on availability. And so if patients want something soon, so if they have a time frame in mind, that may push them towards another surgeon over another. And then it's just about kind of tracking that and keeping it fair amongst the surgeons so that, just because somebody has availability, it doesn't mean that the other surgeon schedules are, empty in 2 weeks from now.
Right. Another curiosity thing, does every surgeon have to share the same fee schedule, or are they all different? And would that cause all sorts of trouble?
So they are slightly different, but they are determined by the company. So I don't get to determine my fees. My fees are based on kind of what they've determined is kind of the most reasonable for the area based on our practice style, all of those sorts of things based on what we offer.
Gotcha.
There's really just the owner's fees and then the other fees, and that's it. So there's really not, it's not like where you go to a salon and you go to a master stylist and then the level 2 and the level 1 and the so on and so forth. But for other locations, the fees are also based regionally. And so that is kind of taken into consideration as well, is what can they charge based on where they're located. Because, someone in Manhattan versus somewhere in Oklahoma can't really charge the same amount for the same procedure.
Right, for sure. Regarding marketing, regarding branding, actually, the brand is HKP, but then we have your brand,
Mhm.
So, and there's a fine line there between how do you promote you, versus, because your name has to get out there in the world. I don't care who you're with, like patients know you. And I love that there's a company Instagram, but then you get your own Instagram. So how free are you to promote yourself?
So we're pretty free to promote ourselves. The main thing is keeping it within brand standards. And so our brand is pretty loose. We don't have a very rigid brand. We, I think, all have very similar goals in mind and a similar kind of style. So it comes naturally to us to post the things that are within brand standards. And so I don't have to get approval for any of my posts or anything like that. They've never had any problems with anything I've posted. I think if I posted something crazy and outlandish, they might say, hey, can we maybe do that in a different way? Or can you please take that down? But a lot of times they're open to kind of my feedback about, social media and marketing, and how we can elevate that to the next level. I think for me and for a lot of surgeons, the most important part about marketing is not only showing my results and what I can achieve, but also showing who I am as a person. And so the more that I can kind of find little ways to do that, the better. Keeping it authentic and true to myself, not trying to be somebody else, is really the way that I get the patients that I want to work with and the patients that I enjoy taking care of. And so I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I've had over the past 6 years is when you are put yourself and who you are in your true authentic self out there, you're going to be much happier with who you get as a patient.
Well, and you'll be more consistent, you know?
Oh yeah, it's really easy to be yourself. You don't have to fake anything. You don't have to
Yeah.
remember the lie.
A lot of that is just your maturity, and just growing into yourself. But it's just a lot easier to be you. Jeez.
Yeah.
How about patient trends? What are you? I know you've done a lot of. I've noticed the younger surgeons are really looking at the massive body weight, surgery. Is that just something I'm noticing, or is that like you guys seem to you like that? You do you like it too?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I think for many different reasons. It, kind of scratches that itch of still needing to do something like reconstructive or something that is hugely transformative. I love being able to take a patient from on one day and completely transform them. That's so satisfying. And I don't know if it's just because we grew up watching like those before and after shows, like extreme home makeovers and whatever, but that's like a big thing. The other thing too is the availability. I think a lot more patients are candidates for these types of surgeries now because of GLP-1s.
Right.
And we're just seeing it more and more and more. And I think the weight loss surgery, as far as the skin removal, is also becoming less stigmatized. The scars are becoming less stigmatized. Tattoos are becoming more popular. So patients are more comfortable covering up scars. And so there's a lot of changes that have made that piece of things a big kind of increase in my practice. It was something I always enjoyed before. My brother is a massive weight loss patient, had a gastric sleeve, lost over 100 pounds, and has had skin removal surgery. So it's always something I've been passionate about. And I love it. I think it's amazing. And the patients are so wonderful and grateful and just the sweetest and best people.
I always wonder though, are because I'm really big on the cosmetic patient being the long tail patient because they hang around with other patients like their age who want what they've had, and they're really good word of mouth referrals. Are weight loss patients also that?
Oh, yes. So they have a lot of support groups. So there's a lot of weight loss support groups. And so they do a lot of that during the weight loss portion of things. And then they talk about who their surgeon was, who they went to, all of those sorts of things. They're also patients that give you longevity. So they're not just a one and done type of procedure, not just a breast aug patient that's going to come back 20, 30 years later for a facelift. These are patients that have sometimes, 6, 7, 8, 9 different procedures. And some patients I've done 4 or 5 different stages on. And so they're very rewarding to take care of. They also provide you with a lot of surgery to take care of. So a lot of my consults involve, well, this is stage 1. We're going to do this, this, and this. This is stage 2. We're going to do this, this, and this. And then stage 3, we might do this. And then there could be revisions. And so those patients, they stay in the practice. They also are of all sorts of ages. And so anywhere from your 19-year-old patient all the way up to your 60, 70-year-old patient. And so they have different needs and changes throughout life. So they may come back to you for certain things. They might be coming to your med spa for treatments for, Botox, fillers, lasers, all of those sorts of things. So they really do stay within the practice and do refer a lot of patients as well.
So, what marketing channels do you use or spend your time on to help attract that group?
So it's really just word of mouth, but I have been involved in some of the weight loss support groups and doing like a little talk about what's what's available to those patients as far as once they lose the weight, what we can do for their excess skin. And so every year I do a little Zoom session with them, have a little PowerPoint together, talk to them about what surgeries are available, what downtime looks like. And then I also show them some patient results so they can see real people. They can see, oh, I could look like that after my skin removal surgery. That's great. So that has also been really helpful. Plus, I just like being able to educate patients about what's out there because they just might not know unless they know somebody who's had it.
Well, for sure. The I've noticed also the public forums. Like Reddit has really notched up their game, and
Mhm.
I don't know if you're on there yet, but boy, they can be your best friend or your worst enemy depending on how it went. But those public forums are everything, and I would think you're right about the massive body people. Typically, they have been in some kind of a support group.
Mhm.
God, I can't imagine like losing that massive amount of weight. Whew, and now they have all this skin. And a lot of the celebrities have helped that too, because so many of them have lost a bunch of weight. Now they
Yeah.
have that excess skin. So the patient stories are I mean, you have kind of a built-in marketing machine there, just in general. The issue is
Oh yeah.
how do they find you? But you know.
I mean, for example, I had a patient that he lost over 300 pounds, had some lymphedema to his legs, and we did some primary treatment for lymphedema, medical management. And then I did some removal of his thighs and removed 15 and a half pounds of
My God.
thigh. So, and he's doing great. He's like, yeah, I'm doing great.
How long can you
So,
stay under anesthesia, general?
I mean, when we do training and we're doing free flap surgeries, we're putting, patients are under anesthesia for a lot longer sometimes than what we do in aesthetic surgery.
Yeah.
In aesthetic surgery, we look at some time points where, at 4 hours, there's a little bit increased risk. At 6 hours, there's a little bit more. So
Mhm.
I usually tell patients I try to keep their surgery times under about 6.5 hours, if possible. They just start to get cold. They start to have more risk of complications and infections and things. And so it's about reducing the number of times they have to undergo anesthesia and have recovery, but also keeping it safe as far as not creating too much time under anesthesia.
Yeah. You've also done a good job of social proof, collecting it, good before
Mhm.
and after photos, and your Instagram's looking pretty good. Any tips or tricks on how you're getting the consents?
So we have a basic consent that looks at if they want to share all media, social media, educational content, website before and afters. I find that because I post results on Instagram and I show patients my results on Instagram and they see it, they're more likely to want to share with other patients because that's how they found me or that's what convinced them to have surgery with me is is Instagram. And so they're much more likely to share things because of what they see already posted there. The thing that as far as convincing a patient that maybe didn't give initial consent, I tell them how amazing they look. That other patients that look like them would love to see the results. We can make it. We're not going to ever show your face, if you don't want to, and those sorts of things. And a lot of times, patients will agree to it because they are just satisfied with the results and they want to show off what they've been able to achieve.
It's just so powerful that you can get that. We're going to get down to the end here. Give me a crazy patient or staff story you care to share.
Well, we've got a lot of them. The world is a crazy place, and so there's lots of crazy stories out there. But the most recent, well, not most recent, but the most interesting one that comes to mind is that a patient of mine didn't show up for her follow up appointment. And in the appointment notes, it said that her husband had passed away. And so, of course, she was going to reschedule. Months later, one of my staff members saw her on TV, on the news, because she had been accused of murdering her husband.
Oh my God.
And so I don't know that she's going to be coming back for any follow ups anytime soon, but she's thankfully outside of the window of immediate care. So
My.
Yeah, but she was
Can can I just ask morbidly, how did she do it?
she shot him in the chest.
Oh my gosh. I if I were gonna do that, I would be more like I'd poison somebody. Wouldn't that be easier? No?
I mean, maybe, but she did the things like Googling how to do things,
Oh
and
my god. They
can't do
always
that.
get caught on that. Because they
Well,
always Google it before they do
don't
it.
Google it.
Or at least, do the incognito for God's sakes, you know?
Yeah, or go to the library and do it as somebody else,
No, totally. What the heck?
Yeah.
So tell us something interesting we know about you. And I'm just going to throw out one of them that I thought was super interesting.
Uh-huh.
You went to school, and one of your majors or minors was speaking Russian. And I thought, of all things, like Russian, that had to be a very difficult language. So, anything about that?
It is very difficult. It's I mean, I studied it for like 3.5 years. Very difficult. Went to Russia for a while, one summer. I was interested in international relations as part of my focus, and I'm Eastern European background. And so my thinking was this is a very strategic language. Mandarin was probably my second choice, but that seemed too difficult. Looking back on it, I don't know if that's true. I think they're both pretty difficult.
Yep.
But it was really great. I love languages. I speak a little Spanish too, but both of them are very rusty. So I think I probably speak more Spanish than I do Russian at this point in time. But it was a great experience. It's a different way to stretch your brain. And for me, I knew that I was going to be devoting my life to medicine. And so during my undergraduate career, I tried to learn everything. I did art classes, I did psychology classes, anthropology classes. I did Russian language. So I kind of thankfully had the foresight to know that the rest of my life would be spent dedicated to one area of study. And so to be able to take advantage to learn some other things while I could was great.
And then what about your sports interest?
Oh, well, also in college, I was actually on the women's club rugby team, and I
Ooh,
had never played rugby before then. And my college roommate decided that she was going to try out for the team, and I wanted to just be a supportive roommate. I ended up really enjoying it. I, it's crazy. I mean, it's a full tackle sport, and
yeah.
so full tackle. I got injured my knee, and so I stopped playing. Didn't obviously continue after that, but it was a great experience. I played flag football on my medical school team, so still did all those sorts of things, throughout my life. I'm very competitive, so I got to find a way to get that out.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, rugby just seems so physically demanding, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not down to hurt anything. I don't want to break my bones or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't break anything, but definitely messed up my knee a little bit. Had probably a concussion or so. So yeah.
All right. Anybody, if they wanted to get a hold of you, your website is hkbsurgery.com, and your Instagram is Dr. Shawna, Shawna Kleban, Kleban. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to get to know you better. I'll be watching your career as you grow, and you're with a really big group with a lot going on. And God, what a great background for learning the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. So congratulations. And everybody, that's going to do it for us today. If you would so kindly give me a review and subscribe to Beauty and the Biz so we can grow our audience, that'd be terrific. And then if you've got any feedback for me or questions, leave them on my website and pick up my new book. That's at CatherineMaley.com. You can certainly DM me on Instagram. That would be Catherine Maley, MBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon. Hello, it's Catherine. If your practice feels busy but you're not seeing the growth you expected, there's usually a reason, and it's often something small that's quietly costing you revenue. That's why I offer a practice growth review. Now, in this call, I'll take an objective look at your patient flow, conversion process, and retention strategies to identify where opportunities may be slipping through the cracks. You'll walk away with a clear picture of what's working, what's not, and the few changes that could make the biggest difference. If you'd like an unbiased set of expert eyes on your practice, simply visit CatherineMaley.com to schedule your review.